right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our solid waste update. It is August 5th, 2025. The time is 11 a.m. In attendance are Commissioners Eberline and Duncan. Commissioner Matari is out. And are there changes to the agenda? Hearing none. Public comment? Hearing none. We'll go ahead with our business items, and we'll start with projects 2025.
All right, good morning, Commissioners. JP for the record. This is your quarterly solid waste plus 1 month update. It's a little late. The presentation is designed to keep you informed while also giving you a brief overview of the many key aspects of the solid waste department. As I go through these agenda items, feel free to stop me at any time if you have any specific questions about that item. So to begin with projects 2025, I want to talk about the Leachate pilot update. I always give a little bit of background data just in case anybody watching isn't up to speed with what's happened with that. So leachate's considered an industrial wastewater and it can be difficult to treat. As a reminder, the department was notified that our local regional publicly owned treatment works or a wastewater treatment plant would not be able to continue accepting our leachate unless we removed some key ingredients, some key constituents, I should say, such as PFAS, PCBs, and TDS. So Kootenai County Solid Waste, because of that, solicited those local POTWs for future potential standards. We ended up working with Jacobs Engineering and a company called Dynatech out of New Jersey to get some treatment technology for the landfill. Dynatech completed a bench scale treatability test and that study had been successful, so we issued a PO and an RO, so a reverse osmosis and ultrafiltration system was shipped to the landfill, and we got that all ready to go, and it was completely ready to go by May of 2025. The ultrafiltration was tested in May and it worked just fine, but the reverse osmosis portion suffered pump failure in early June. Dynatech credited us 1 month of free rental so they could get that system operational, and the good news is now the pilot is up and running and it is currently appears successful. We're currently treating 35,000 gallons per day, or I should say 28,000 gallons per day, but 20 or 50% of that, so 14,000 gallons per day is actually coming back as pure clean water. And then the remainder is a concentrated solution that's being returned to the pond at the moment, the leachate pond at the moment, and then we're rerunning that material. That's a big pond, it holds a few million gallons. So Dynatech anticipates, based on testing, that we'll be able to turn that up and achieve what the unit is touted as being able to process up to a gross 1 million gallons per month and hopefully around 700,000 gallons per month of clean water. So, but we're ramping that up slowly so that we don't foul those membranes or the filters. So just slowly working our way into that and waiting, like I said, for some results to confirm that we can turn that up. So currently we've processed about 350,000 gallons of clean water since it started and a total of about 700,000 gallons of raw leachate. Solid Waste Department will hold off on making any recommendation to purchase this equipment until the technology is able to completely prove itself. So we'd like to run that process around 2 million gallons gross through it before we would make any kind of recommendation and get that up to full speed.
What do you do with the 350,000 clean water?
So right now we're storing it in a leachate pond that had been cleaned by Big Sky Industrial. We had it all pressure washed and vectored out, and we're storing it in there, and then Harbs is going to come take some tests of that, just confirm it's good for their plant, and then we will take that and we'll run it in water truck loads to the wastewater treatment plant and make sure it doesn't impact their plant. That will be part of helping us identify that this is truly working for our needs.
Okay.
Moving on to landfill phase E3 construction. So as you know, and I wish this wasn't still on here, but as you know, we had a leachate construction or I should say a landfill construction project that went out to bid in 2023, and we went through complete construction last year. They finished up this past December, but there was just a couple of electrical issues remaining. Well, there's still a few electrical things hanging out there. They did complete all any remaining erosion control issues that we needed to tidy up this spring, so we'll be able to close out that site disturbance permit. But the two things that are remaining is training related to the operation of the pump station, which is pretty minimal because we already have 2 other pump stations that are identical with the same exact controls. But there's a variable frequency drive, or a VFD, that controls a large pump that is under warranty and failed. And so we're waiting for that replacement. They're having a difficult time getting it, but Until that time, we're still holding back about $17,000 for final payment. We're not going to make that payment until it's fixed. And right now, I'm in contact with our engineer, and we're pressuring them to get that done here in the next month. So,
Who provides the VFD?
it's a company called EPG. I believe they're out of Illinois.
Are you familiar with Yoshikawa?
No, I'm not.
I'm familiar with those things, and Yoshikawa is the top of the line.
Okay. If EPG isn't responsive, I'll get with you, Mark. I'll give you a call, and we'll come up with something. So United Crown is able to provide a VFD for us, but because it's under warranty, I was trying to get it through the company that originally bid it, but we could hold that money back and just
There's some cheapies out there and Yoshikawa is the very, very best.
Okay. All right. I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, so moving on to closure turf and VersaCap engineering design. So this is a quickly approaching new project that I want to give you heads up about. So before the solid waste department can start putting garbage into the new cell that was constructed into E3, we want to close certain areas of the older landfill, meaning not completely close it, but put a waterproof membrane over the top of it and close those outside slopes so we don't produce as much leachate. We can minimize that production because we have limited storage capacity. So as you open new areas, you want to close previous areas to minimize that production of leachate. So in this fiscal year, the solid waste department has planned to have Parametrics Engineering put together bid specs for this capping project. Closure funds were already budgeted for this type of work, and Parametrics did recently supply a proposed scope of work and pricing related to this design, the drawing, specifications, cost, and estimate, survey, bid support, as well as construction management. The solid waste department as well as legal are currently reviewing that proposal, and it's likely the department will bring that before the Board of County Commissioners in the very near future as a request to continue moving forward with that necessary project. Any questions about that? Okay, so moving on to Fighting Creek landfill operations. So garbage volumes are as expected for this time of year, no real surprises, and we'll see that in the statistics later. The landfill's been receiving an average of approximately 750 tons per day, but that can vary from 500 tons per day to 900 tons per day, just depending on the day. The landfill crew and environmental techs have been doing an outstanding job keeping up with the daily operations, the cover, and minimizing odors. I'd like to give a big thanks to everybody involved at the landfill for the hard work that they do each and every day. And moving on to the landfill gas system. So the gas collection has been working very well. Crews continues installing horizontal gas collection trenches right in front of daily operations. This minimizes odors because we don't disturb as much open area, and we're easily able to cover that when we do dig up the old garbage. That's a stinky process, putting in those lines. So this is good for the neighbors, just installing those right ahead of the working area. Currently, we're collecting about 1,400 standard cubic feet per minute of landfill gas. About 1,000 standard cubic feet per minute of that gas is used by the gas-to-energy plant. Then the balance is combusted via our landfill gas flare, so it's just burned off. Kootenai Renewable Energy, the company that owns the gas-to-energy plant now, is interested in possibly installing a third engine to increase gas production. But if they make that investment, they sound like they would like to revisit the contract and renegotiate the entire contract. I've been working with Paragon Consulting to look at the ideas that they're kind of throwing against the wall just to see if it would fly. I want to see if those are worth bringing to the Board of County Commissioners before I actually bring them to you. So in other words, if we're going to end up making more money in the long run, I would bring it to you. If it looks like it's a move to where we would end up making less money, I wouldn't bother bringing it to you. So that's what we're kind of evaluating. So Paragon's given me some numbers, said, hey, if we don't reach these numbers, it's not worth opening at this point. They also have investigated, long-term what they predict the price of power will do and whether it may be worth waiting to open the contract until we get closer to the end of it. I believe the current contract lasts through 2032. So I'll keep Leslie posted as things progress. So moving on to transfer station operations. Transfer station traffic and waste volumes are normal for this time of year. When we get into statistics, you'll see that one transfer station is a little higher, one's a little lower. And numbers of customers. Our crews have been doing a great job at both transfer stations, and operations have been fairly smooth with very few complaints overall. Ramsey Pit asphalt project was a success, and we appreciate the public's patience during that process. Unfortunately, we have to do that in the busier time of the year just because of when you need to lay asphalt down. But that project only occurs usually on average about every 3 to 4 years. So that is complete and it looks good. Our new small load public drop-off area or express lane at the Ramsey Transfer Station has been well received by the public. Currently receiving 150 to 200 vehicles per day, sometimes over 200. And customers are reporting that they love the convenience and the fact that they nearly get to skip the entire line. So people are in and out quick. If customers haven't used that site yet with small loads, I encourage them to look for those signs on the way in, the main entrance, and they'll see it straight ahead up as they're traveling eastbound. So it's a good way to get in and out of the transfer station and avoid the lines at Ramsey. Moving on to personnel and recruitment. So we currently have 4 full-time positions open. One is a heavy equipment mechanic, one is an environmental technician, and we have 2 solid waste technicians or spotters. We've been receiving a number of applications for the environmental tech as well as the solid waste tech positions, and I'm certain that we'll fill those positions fairly soon. And for some reason, those have really ticked up lately, so it's been good that we're getting a lot of applicants for those. So a big thanks to the BOCC for being able to follow the pay plans over the last several years, and this has definitely made a big difference in our staffing levels. The one position that I have to point out we're having a difficult time filling is our heavy equipment mechanic position. We're not receiving qualified applicants, and this position's been open now for nearly 4 months. The department's been spending extra funds taking some of our equipment, our trailers and things to a local repair shop because our mechanic's not able to keep up, and we've been bringing another mechanic in from the Prairie Transfer Station to help on certain days. In fact, he's there today helping out at Ramsey, but really Ramsey's a 2 mechanic site because of the amount of equipment we have on that site. I've worked with HR and we've looked at the hiring wage from the step 1 through 5 range, and I don't want to create a compression issue right now, but I am now advertising the 1 through the 5 rather than the 1 through the 3 to avoid the compression. I did talk to HR. They said they've looked at that position fairly recently in the past as far as wages go, but I do believe we should take another look at what we're paying our mechanics and just make sure that it's competitive with similar positions in our area because there's just nothing coming in. So I'll keep working with HR on that, but I just wanted to make you aware. Moving on to rural site operations, Sunshine Recycling, who hauls our garbage from our rural sites, has generally done a good job with the haul of the refuse from the rural collection sites to the transfer stations. But we've been working through some recent difficulties with some of their newer employees as well as minor equipment failures. Kootenai County Solid Waste staff will continue to stay in contact with Sunshine Disposal and remind them of the contract requirements. So what I'm describing here is over the past month or so, they've had a couple times on weekends where I get reports that the dumpsters are full. And so, right away I'll contact Sunshine, let them know, and usually they're very responsive, but that should not be happening. So I'll start cracking the whip a little bit more with Sunshine and make sure that they're following that contract. Overall, the rural collection sites have been looking pretty good, but the levels of abuse have increased somewhat at our unstaffed facilities. Most rural residential users do follow the rules, and they do an excellent job, but the solid waste does have a full-time employee that has to go around and clean up at these sites constantly. As long as we have unstaffed facilities, this won't go away. And the goal, of course, with the rural collection sites is to consolidate, is to staff, and get some cameras. So just a quick reminder to the public, we do need their help at these rural collection sites. Please don't place any items outside of the containers. It's tempting, people think that some residents will like to use their old couch or their old table, and so it's tempting to set it aside, but really nobody takes it, and it just turns out to be a mess, and we have to pay somebody to clean all that stuff up. So that's really a no-no, and there are signs on virtually every container that say don't leave items on the ground. In most cases, it's free to dispose of those larger items at the transfer station, so we encourage residents to bring their furniture or large bulky items, tires, large quantities of brush, things like that to the transfer stations. Thanks in advance for your cooperation to the public. Additional info for the public, typically during our holiday weekend, so Labor Day's going to be coming up. We usually receive larger than normal quantities of garbage because of the increased number of people that are around the lake and things like that, staying at vacation rentals. Please plan to try and discard your refuse either just ahead or just after that weekend, because usually the containers will fill, and we know that that's just expected, and that we do keep the landfill open additional time and even on the holiday to try to make accommodation for that. But there's just a lot of people that show up during that time, so it's good to try to plan around that. Thanks in advance again for cooperation and understanding there. Wolf Lodge property update and future development. As you know, we purchased property in that Wolf Lodge area with the intention of construction of a future staffed rural collection site. That site will allow the future consolidation of some of those sites in the area and give us better control of the refuse collection by minimizing abuse. Kootenai County Solid Waste as well and JUB have worked closely. We have a design, and as you know, we've gotten through the special use permit process to allow future construction and operation of that site within Kootenai County. Currently, JUB is working on the contractual documents, plans, and specifications so we can put that project out to bid in late 2025. I'll keep the board posted as things progress. I'd love to see that site open next year before the busy season, but I'm not entirely sure when it'll be approved for construction and the actual site disturbance. So I'm guessing that wouldn't occur till spring. So hopefully early summer it would be open next year. Moving on to patrol and public education. So the Sheriff's Department continues to do a good job patrolling and educating the public at these rural collection facilities. But like I said, that abuse is somewhat picked up over the course of the last few months. In order to get a handle on some of that abuse, we've talked about the installation of cameras at our Sunup Bay and our Kid Island sites. Those sites are hit pretty hard sometimes. Right now we have quotes in place and money's available, and so we are actually having cameras installed very shortly at both of those sites. Once installed, the Sheriff's Department will be given a link to the live video feed, so they'll be able to link in from their patrol cars, is my understanding, and be able to see what's going on at those sites without actually being there. Some residents have voiced concerns about some of the illegal dumping and have requested issuing citations for illegally dumping. They've called me about that. It's very few people, but they feel that this is very important to start issuing citations for dumping, on the ground or people from outside the county. I did let those citizens know that really law enforcement is out of our hands, but they're welcome to contact law enforcement about the actual ticketing of citizens. So far, it's been primarily an educational tour, if you will, out there. But I have seen the Sheriff's Department in the past with their citation book out at rural sites, so I know they have ticketed people for abuse. So. Moving on lastly to solid waste statistics compared January through June. So this will give you a snapshot of 2024 versus 2025, so same time period. I gave you some handouts, but in general, the customer visits at the Ramsey transfer station are down 1.6%. But remember that we did have that paving project, so that's likely really just the paving project and those customers being shifted to the Prairie transfer station where you see it up 4.5%. So we're probably actually pretty flat, probably maybe slightly up at the transfer stations, maybe below 2% up total overall if you were to look at it. And that's reflected by the tonnage at the Fighting Creek landfill being up 1.7%, which was really the amount of garbage that's coming in and being landfilled. So that's probably a more clear representation of what's actually occurring out there. So that's lower than average when you look at the last 20 plus years in the solid waste department, which averages about 3% growth per year. So we're up about 1.7%. You can look at the rural collection sites, though, are actually up in the 6.3 to 6.4% range on visits and tonnage. So those rural areas are seeing more people out there in those areas, and they're getting a little bit busier. So look at the bottom there, the Ramsey Express drop-off area. You can see that we've had 8,443 visits so far and a total of 214 tons. That's taking some pressure off of the scale houses there and the congestion at the Ramsey transfer station. Now, like I said, the numbers are more up around the 200 range now. So it's, as people are figuring that out, it's getting busier and busier and well received. So if you don't have any questions, that would conclude my solid waste update.
No questions?
No questions?
Oh, me neither. So I'll call for public comments. None? All right. 11:19, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, JP.
Yeah.